Hi everybody, welcome to Shivers. Today we're doing our third new movie review for 2026. We're talking all about Scream 7. This came out last night, February 27th. This, as it stands this morning, has 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's not looking too promising for this movie. If you don't want any spoilers, just fast forward to the end for the actual rating. Otherwise, I'll kind of give you the background on the story and some of the cast as well. So Kevin Williamson is the person who directed and created and produced all of the Scream movies, including the last one, Scream 6, where Neve Campbell was not in because of monetary discrepancies. So he's been in, hands in all of the Scream movies so far. He also directed and produced I Know What You Did Last Summer. So we're getting kind of more of that classic feel from Kevin Williamson already off the bat from this movie. We do have Neve Campbell. She is really the big star of the show, along with her daughter, whose name is Isabel May. In real life, in the movie, her name is Tatum, named after Sidney Prescott's best friend, the girl that got crushed in the garage door from Scream 1. We also have the twins come back, Mindy and Chad. We have a character named Ben, who is Tatum's boyfriend. And then we have neighbors, Jessica and Lucas. Jessica is a single mother living right next door to Sidney Prescott with her son, Lucas. Joel McHale is now Neve Campbell's husband, which is pretty cool. So it's nice to see him. I'm a big fan of Joel McHale. And then we have Courtney Cox as Gale Weathers coming back for this movie as well. This is something that I would really equate to the most recent Conjuring movie, The Conjuring Last Rites. If you're in the mood for a Scream movie, you have a Scream movie. If you're looking for something different, you're not going to get it. So going sort of just in the story, we have a big focus on like the teenage life of Tatum. So we're already seeing Ben sneaking into her window and Sidney Prescott just being very like, no, this is not going to fly. Look at what happened with Billy Loomis and he climbed into my window. No. So she's a very strict parent. We flash sort of linearly to the Woodsboro house in California, and they've turned it into an Airbnb, which is true in real life. So we have the classic Scream fashion of the beginning of the movie being kind of cheesy in terms of these people who are like super fans of Stab, which is the Scream movie inside of the Scream movie. And everything in the Woodsboro house is the replica of what had happened in the Stab movies and in the real life crime. So you have that over-the-top fandom, kind of the same thing as that fanboy from The Menu. It's that same vibe. Of course, that's where our slasher starts. Ghostface comes out and kills these big horror fans, lights the whole Woodsboro house on fire, and then starts making his way back home. So there's really no... I'll jump ahead just a little bit. There's really no point to burning down the Woodsboro house. There's a lot of like conversations and videos of like, I needed to go back to where this all started, but it's not relevant to the rest of the story or to the reveal at all. So it's just kind of like a cheesy beginning. But now we have Sidney Prescott as a very strict parent. Joel McHale is her husband, who is a police chief, so very on brand. And her two youngest children are staying somewhere with their grandparents. So we know that Sidney Prescott has 3 children total, but the only one that's home is Tatum. So we spend the majority of the movie focusing on Tatum. She's in high school, she's about to go into a play, and now she's at that age where she's starting to ask questions about who is my mom and where did she come from? So every single time she brings it up to Sidney Prescott, she's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Like, you can go watch your interviews and go online and do your thing, and you can find out whatever you need to find out through there. You don't need to ask me. So she's just being very private. Tatum is getting more and more agitated at this and now is in this rebellion phase. She's already having Ben sneak into her window. Now she's at practice, kind of slacking off. Like, she's just teetering on the edge of starting to do some bad things. We're at this rehearsal with her and all of her friends, and Sidney Prescott gets this phone call from Stu Macher, Matthew Lillard. It's nice to see him in the movie, but we'll get back to that. So Stu Macher says, I never really died. I burned down the Woodsboro house in case you don't watch the news. and now I'm coming after you. I know you own a little coffee shop and I know exactly where you are. And hey, guess what? I'm standing outside of your daughter's high school and I know she has rehearsals, so you better get here quick. So at that moment, Sydney Prescott is at her coffee shop with her neighbor, Jessica, talking all about Jessica's past of how she had an abusive husband, and Sydney inspired her to like be a survivor and stand up. And Sydney's just kind of like, yeah, okay, like, cool, now I gotta go get my daughter. So she's on her way to go get her daughter, of course, in slow motion. And we have McKenna Grace, the actress, as one of Tatum's friends. She is the star of the show. She's hanging from the rafters. And as in slasher fashion, Ghostface comes in. She's hanging up on these ropes and she gets offed. She's our first pretty much relevant victim. Everybody now is starting to see that Ghostface is back in town. Tatum comes out from back behind the stage with her boyfriend and sees everything that's going on, sees her mom, sees now her police chief, Jad, and now it's confirmed that Ghostface is back in town. All of these letters start coming with, notes on your phone or texts or calls, and everything is saying that it's Stu Macher, that he's back. While at the coffee shop, Sydney Prescott hands some man named Carl his coffee, and he looks at her strangely. So we know that Carl's going to come back. One night then that they're at home, Sydney and Tatum and her husband, they get a phone call that, like, basically, I'm outside your house. So the cops come, they don't find anything, and then rolls in Gale Weathers during a brawl with Ghostface, Joel McHale, and Sydney Prescott, and Gale Weathers and the twins roll in and run over Ghostface as they're all fighting in the street. So, of course, there's no neighbors outside. The police who were just at their house have very quickly gone away. But Gale Weathers and the twins run over Carl. They unmasked him to see it's Carl. And Gale and Sydney are basically like, no, we don't buy it. There's always either more than one, or we have a situation where it's somebody who's tied to me. And this man, I don't know who he is. I don't have any ties to him. So they backtrack a little bit and they find out that this Carl guy has been in an insane asylum for the last X amount of years for killing 3 women. And he just got released 3 weeks ago. They go to this insane asylum and all these pictures that are drawn on his wall are all of this like blonde woman and all of these like murders and things like that. And then they show the orderly there, the only person who seemingly works at this psych ward, a picture of Stu Macher from these FaceTimes. And they're like, do you know who this is? And the orderly's like, yeah, this is John. And they're like, John? He's like, yeah, John Doe. He just also got released like 2 weeks ago. And he was BFFs with Carl. So now they're starting to plant the seed that Stu Macher has survived all of these years. They call the morgue that he was originally buried in, and it's been too long for his records to still be there. So there's really no trace of Stu Macher ever actually dying. Now is Stu alive? Is he actually coming after Sydney? Nobody really knows, but now there's going to be a town curfew. Of course, the only people who decide to go out after curfew are Sydney Prescott and Tatum. Tatum sneaks out with her friends and now the twins. And the twins are like, we want to gather all of your friends together to see who it might be. As we throw it back to just Scream 6 and Scream 5, it's all pretty close. And they even allude to that in saying if Billy Loomis could have had a love child with someone else, anything is possible. Stu Macher could be alive. But the more likely answer is that it's probably somebody who's techie, who knows how to use AI to put Stu Macher's face on everything. So we're looking for somebody who's smart. This entire time it is painfully obvious that Tatum's boyfriend, Ben, has been carrying around a MacBook. You're post-curfew, sneak out to a bar, you're going to bring your computer. So he brings his computer and he's starting to analyze all of these pictures of Stu. And he's like, if this is a fake, this is a really good one. And I'm going to try to basically like recreate it. So he's off in his little corner, and then Ghostface finds his way to the bar. Sydney and Gail decide to have an actual interview. And Gail has been asking Sydney Prescott for an interview for years. She says, if this is a way that I'm going to get Ghostface to be able to call me in real time while we're on TV and stay away from my daughter, that's what I'm going to do. So they go live on air. She starts having this conversation with Gail, and Gail pushes her a little bit too far. So they have to cut it off air, exactly as planned. Ghostface calls and said, hey, your daughter snuck out after curfew. I'm going to go ahead and go to the bar and go kill all your kids and their friends. So instead of calling the cops, Sydney gets on her 2 feet and decides to run from the TV station to the bar, and we have no idea where this is. Gail is just upset that Sydney left the interview and we don't know where she went. But she has a car. So this is where the absurdity really starts to kick in. We now have this whole brawl scene in the bar with all of these teenagers, and Lucas dies. One of the other friends dies, and the twins both just get hurt. Ben and Tatum go outside to the car, and Tatum sees on Ben's computer the deep fake face replacement of Stu to him. And it's like really aggressive in his video. He's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, bitch. And he's like, I'm just acting. I just want to see if this is gonna be transferable. And she's like, no, I think it's you. I think it like this is all I need to know. So she jumps out of the car. Ghostface is outside, stabs Ben, absolutely slaughters him. And now Tatum decides to go also on her 2 feet, run down the road, and start pulling on all the doors of these businesses that are closed because of curfew. She's screaming at the top of her lungs, help me, help me. No one's there. Everybody's home because they follow the rules. So she knows the code to her mom's coffee shop. She goes in the coffee shop. Instead of just sitting still, she decides to make a scene, and her mom calls her, and her mom's like, you got to go in the office and do what you can to get the gun. And she's like, I can't get the gun. Also, let me back up a little bit to that earlier brawl in the house with Joel McHale and the whole family. They have an actual panic room in their closet. And Sydney Prescott decided to take Tatum into the panic room to walk through the panic room to try to escape the house. Like, if you just sat in that panic room, you'd be fine. Absolutely fine. So now we're back at the coffee shop over phone, trying to walk Tatum how to load and shoot a gun. And she's like, I can't, I'm too scared. I don't have that survivor instinct in me that you do. And so she's like, yes, you do. You're my daughter, blah, blah, blah. Trying to coach her through it. So she finally starts to tell her all the truth at the worst convenient time, most inconvenient time. And that gives Tatum enough gumption to try to shoot Ghostface through the wall. She does. Of course, now Ghostface has a bulletproof vest on. Fast forward through all of the other brawling. There are still no cops anywhere. We get to the house, Sydney Prescott's house, and this is where our grand finale is. Tatum is taken, put into a chair in the backyard, and Ghostface calls Sydney, and they're like, if you ever want to see your daughter again, come outside and go in your backyard. So in the backyard, there are now 2 Ghostfaces, dead Carl, very injured husband, and Tatum strapped to a chair. So the big reveal is that it is, spoiler alert, Jessica, the neighbor, and the orderly from the insane asylum. And Jessica goes on to explain that, as she mentioned earlier, Sydney Prescott's book inspired her to kill her husband, and Sydney went away. We don't know necessarily where she went, but that's the whole reason why she wasn't in Scream 6, is because she went away. And Jessica's like, you going somewhere and you not telling me where you're going, like, that just made me break. And so I checked myself into a mental asylum, and there I met Carl, and there I met this orderly who doesn't even have a name. Even if you look at the cast sheet, it just says actor. So she's like, I want to be just like you, and there can only be one you. So like, this is just what I have to do, and I also have to have a fresh start. So that's why I had to just kill my son in the bar. So she's like, okay, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but, you know, do you, girl? And so they get into this big fight. Of course, Jessica dies because Tatum and Sydney finally sort of team up and completely destroy her. So that's how the movie ends. It's really not good. It's, like I said before, it's very equivalent to the most recent Conjuring movie, where if I'm in the mood for Scream, I got Scream. But there's so many plot holes. It's like, it's not as bad as Five Nights at Freddy's 2, but it's pushing it. And for Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell to both be producers in this movie, like, you think that there would be a little bit more thought to it. So all in all, for the story itself, I would give it probably a 1. It's really not, it's not anything that's worthwhile. Same thing for originality. I'm gonna have to go with a 1. I think this is exactly what you would expect, especially even in terms of like the set, like Neve Campbell's house. They're renovating their garage. And so there's all this plastic wrap all over the garage. You know for a fact that we're going to have a plastic wrap slasher scene. That's like Prom Night 101. So that you already have set up. From the actual insane asylum perspective, if they asked just one other person if they saw Stu Macher, they would say no. There would be no John Doe. If they literally asked just one other person. We also know everything on that person's wall, Carl's wall, was this blonde woman. The only blonde woman in this entire movie is Jessica. So like, and she admitted earlier that she had to get away from her abusive husband. Like, it's so predictable. The only time where I was iffy is because I wondered about like why her son was killed. But then at the end, she said it's a clean slate. So it was like, okay. So it's just super, like, you don't need to have any observational skills to see exactly what's coming. For acting, they did a good job. I'm going to give them a 4.5. There wasn't anybody who was a bad actor. This was not like Tarot, where the acting was just atrocious. For production, I'm also going to give it a 4.5. The actual kills were really, really good. The scenes, the setup, the budget, it's a very high budget movie. I can only imagine. I didn't look it up, but it's all done very well. So for scares, this is where I might upgrade it to a 3, just because it is really gory. The same way that I feel about the kills for Fear Street are these same style. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of people who are on both projects. These kills were very creative. They were fun. Not necessarily as brutal and fun as like Thanksgiving, but right on the edge. So I like that piece. I like the more playful death scenes, as kind of messed up as that sounds. So for people who are not big fans of gore or that type of stuff, it's going to be a little bit scarier. So all in all, that does give us a really sad 2.9 out of 5. Again, I don't think that this is like the worst movie. I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't wait to leave the theater. I think Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is like just one step below this to give a little bit of a vibe. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of what I expected, because the last couple I haven't really thought were very good. And at the same time, I feel satisfied. I watched another Scream movie. And the crowd was a really great collective to be part of that. It was people wearing Scream shirts, you know, some people had Scream earrings on. So you love to see that. So I think the collective and the community made this what it is. I like the throwback to some of the old characters. We get a little blip of Dewey, we get Stu Macher. I think that's cool. And I like the kills. I think they're fun. But this is a movie for maybe a 18-year-old. That's what I would say. So thank you as always for listening to my reviews, listening to this review in particular. Let me know what you thought about the new Scream movie, Scream 7. If you haven't seen it, what are your expectations? And let's talk about it. Thanks again, and check out all of the upcoming events that we have going on and other movie trips that we are going on too. Everything is on meetup.com/shivershaunted.